Hello everybody, it's DuckFaden07 with another video. This time we are playing four color Omnat pile. Okay, so the thing is, there really isn't a lot of these decks going around through MTGO leagues at the moment. Uh, to be honest, it seems like nobody's playing uh, this deck at the moment. Maybe not nobody, but I haven't played. I maybe played against this deck like once in last month, so it's pretty out of the meta at the moment, especially on MTGO. Maybe not on paper that much, but especially on MTGO since and the lists have changed. We will talk about that too. I really rarely see this kind of lists. Maybe sometimes some Rise and Reef versions, but this one very rare. Okay, so another thing is what I see with this list. The people have mostly cut Fury, and that is crazy. So you at least want to play one of Fury. People often say one of Fury is so random. So that one of Fury, this deck can dig a lot. So you have expressive iteration. You have some. You can play Ice Fang Kotal. You have the Fairy for card draw. Omnat draws you a card. Okay, so a lot of card draw going on here, and one of Fury can really help in a lot of situations, and the deck has enough red cards to play even more of them. I think two of them is perfect, and I just can't believe this deck decided to ditch the Fury. Maybe not all versions, but the most popular versions are so lately on MTGO. Completely ditched Fury and playing just Solitudes. Okay, so Fury is an answer to the million matchups, and it's just a good fit in this deck as an additional free card. And it's always been good in this deck, and it's still very good, maybe one of the best cards. So there is really no point in removing Fury from this deck, in my opinion. I think it's largely a very bad decision from a lot of players I saw lately. Okay, so other than that, we are playing some typical stuff. This is the version that plays Counterspell. I think Counterspell is great at the moment. A lot of these decks at the moment playing, you have to counter that one critical spell to win the game. And if you have your counter spell in your deck, you can just play the game completely different. And I think control decks are at a very good position in the current modern metagame, at least on the MTGO. Okay, so we have typical removals for this deck: four of Leyline Binding, and the two split for between Prismatic Ending and Lightning Bolt. Also, Ephemerate in the main, the card the most people have removed from this type of versions, and with also they removed the Fury. And I think this is just crazy, and there is really no need for doing that. Ephemerate with Solitude and Fury has been strongest thing this deck can do for uh, for as long as MH2 came out, and there is really no point in removing those from your deck. Uh, it is true that if you are playing two of Ephemerates, you have to play some more creatures, which means like Icefang Kotal or Eternal Witness, stuff like that, which means that you don't have a Kahira uh, on your sideboard, but I think the power of Ephemerate is just too big. So having some extra targets for Ice Fang Kotal, which is also pretty good in the current meta game. It can be pretty helpful. It's another way to block Ragavan, especially in the late game if you already have the fairy on the field, or that way you can block any creature, especially if Ice Fang has Death Touch. You can just play it in combat and they'll be unable to kill it. So you can kill any large creature with the one death toucher that way. Okay, so other than that, we're playing some typical stuff. For Renin 6, Renin is really important for this deck, but just two Teferi Time Revelers, because Teferi is not that important for this deck. So Teferi is good in this deck, but it's not like the core card for this deck. You're playing just um, uh, you're playing counter spells, playing solitudes, lightning bolts, ephemerates, leyline bindings, ice fangs. The fairy is good, so your opponent can't play ephemerate against you. But as I already said, ephemerate is not that much played at the moment. Opponent can't play counterspell against you. That is very good, and it's good against cascade decks. But really, nobody's playing a Living End anymore. I didn't play in against Living End in a full month, not a single game against Living End in a full month on MTGO everyday gameplay. Not a single game against Living End. So the Rhinos deck is much more common at the moment, and the fairy is good against Rhinos. But Rhinos, it's an okay matchup for Solitude Ephemerate deck, and also we have counterspells to fight it with a lot of removal, and also Omnat can help beat it. There's also Doin's Vetoes, verdicts on the sideboard. So a lot of stuff there um, to try to beat that. And yeah, so the fairy is not crucial, and I think two off is a good number. If you, of course, if you're in the meta with a lot of cascade decks, you will play more of them. Maybe on the sideboard, maybe in the main board. But that's it. So okay, this is version not playing Rise and Reef. So we need some kind of card advantage. And the expressive iteration is always a solution, of course. This is a typical list. This counterspell I'm not deck list looks like. I just put in some furies. I put in two ephemerates. I put in some ice fangs, and removed cards that weren't really that necessary, and you can play without them. Like you don't need four Teferis at the moment. Of course, I'm talking about the current MTGO metagame. Um, and some other cards that people are playing, like uh, or whatever. There's a lot of flex spots still in this deck, but I really like ephemerates. I wouldn't remove that, and with ephemerate, you get to play some more ephemerate targets like Icing Kotal or Eternal Witness. So there's nothing to remove here. Of course, if you really don't want, if you need some spots, you can remove ephemerate and Ice Fang to get that extra the fairies in. But I just think it's one of the biggest strengths of this deck is having that solitude and fury ephemerate stuff. Okay, so the thing this deck has been doing long before a scam existed. And doing that solitude, the fury scam on turn one with ephemerate, incredibly strong, and it's really hard for me to completely ditch that and without a valid reason. If I don't think having Kahira on the board is a valid reason to do this. Okay, so that's it. On the sideboard, we have some extra non-creature hate. I think this card is really important on the sideboard. Extra bossages on the sideboard because we play 4, 1, and 6, and you have to play some number of at least two total number of bossages in your 1 and 6 deck. And we are playing Force of Figures, Dress Downs, Celestial Purges, Veil of Summers. So this deck can play Veil of Summer um, before Mystical Dispute or something else. Veil of Summer is really good against Scam at the moment, and Scam can hurt you if they get grief early. So the wheel on the play is just a very good card to have in that matchup. Also, there is a lot of Grixis going on at the moment. It's great in that matchup too, and it's great in Junt. Uh, there is uh, there is really a decent amount of Junt decks in the leagues, like Junt Saga, stuff like that. So. Dress down, good again. Card that's very good against a wide range of decks, and two Celestial Purges here, also for the scam matchup, but also not just that, it also hits a wide range of matchups. It's a decent card for the sideboard, but not mandatory. I think these two are kind of flex sideboard options. You can play other stuff if you need them more. Supreme Verdict, it was just a very good decision option to have on the sideboard in a lot of matchups. For this deck, I think this was really missing from the first iterations of the 4 color on nut piles, and that's it. I really like the list. It feels super strong. It's really incredibly strong. I played 10 games with this list, won all 10 of them. Um, and I just don't at the moment, after winning 10 games with it, I just can see this deck. How does this deck lose a game? Of course, I had a mixture of luck, good luck, and but it's really very strong. Okay, so let's check the last league I played with this deck. It was a 5-0 league. Okay, playing second, keeping decent hand, but no green source. But I have the iteration. I had to shock in for 2 because I drew this counter spell. Maybe try to counter some significant spell, but they were just too aggressive this game. There is nothing I could have done. So I just wait for them to kill me. Yeah, that's it. Very quick loss against Burn. But now knowing what I'm playing against, I could board some good spells and try to keep a better hand. My opponent was also a bit slower this game, which obviously helped. So I was able to just play my run this turn. I was in no need to rush with it. So I just hold my Domin's Veto, play Lena Binding, a kind of ideal situation. Uh, kind of ideal situation, a very easy game. I'm still on 15. My opponent didn't have any pressure. They just played one burn spell, Eidolon, so really nothing going on here. Um, really easy so far. So my opponent goes 2 burn spells in response, which is ideal for me, so I can undisturbatedly just play my Omnat, gain life, and hold Ephemerate, hold Fetch for next turn. Okay, my opponent goes, tries to kill Omnat, so I gain some life. and ephemerate my omelet, save it, and my opponent concedes at this moment. So that's it. Okay, so game three. Game three definitely harder on the draw. Had a decent hand, veto plus solitude plus purge. They had a hand with spells that was not ideal with my two solitude. For my two solitudes in hand. Celestial Purge was decent in this situation. I could have just, I was just able to go for Celestial Purge on that because it would be very tricky with the Solitudes in the place. So I'm very lucky. Was very lucky to have that. So the situation was getting better for me. I was getting close to casting these Solitudes, Furies, Solitude especially was a way for me to start gaining life. I tried to play my Fury first, so they decided to use the skewer on it, so it was a good choice. Uh, I was at an 8, not ideal at this point, but they were forced to kill it, so that's good. They used removal on it instead of in my face, so pretty good, pretty good. So my opponent was had to pay a lot of life here with these fire islets and Sunkback Canyon. So I just bolted them to face, pick them with Vren, put them on 1 life, so they were able to get mana. So they had just 1 mana from Inspiring Vantage, and they were unable to do anything with this mana. And that was it. They were dying from the Vren ping next turn. So it was a very, very close game in match 1 against Burn where I won thanks to my opponent having burning themselves for like 13 damage throughout the game. Okay, so game 2 against the Hammer Time opponent. I had a decent hand here. So I was forced to kill the Stoneforge because they had the Karja. Not forced, but I think it was best to kill a Stoneforge in this situation. Okay, so my opponent had a hand full of Urza Sagas. They played another Stoneforge, which was kind of tricky for me because they had, of course, Kaldra in hand. I already killed the first one. So I kind of had to kill the second one too. So I just passed the turn with counterspell in my hand. They decided to go for the construct this time. It was a good decision. And they had the third as a saga, which was just really, really a lot. I had to counter this Esper Sentinel. Two Esper Sentinels would be too much for me in this situation. They got a lot of artifacts on the field. I was able to play my Omnat in this situation, which helped, but not enough. Still, I was in the game. One ephemerate could really change the course of the game at this moment. So they got another land on the field, Springleaf Drum, and they were able to put me on the 2 with the ability to make another token next turn. Okay, so Leyland Binding was a good draw here. That meant I can remove 2 tokens. And jump the third one with Champ the third one with, sorry, with Solitude to survive the next turn. Try to draw something else. Okay, my opponent goes for another construct token. Really a lot of these Urza Sagas in this game. And they go for the equip, so I have to jump with the boat, which is definitely a losing game. There is just one way to try to win this game. After this, it was like drawing Omnat again into the Solitude. So a really hard game for me. My opponent drew 3 or 4 Urza Sagas, which was a pretty good draw for my opponent. Okay, so game two, I keep a mediocre hand, nothing special, but verdict is very good against them. Fury also uh, to survive the early game. I got the binding to get rid of the giver. Okay, so I could have bounced the Earth Saga here. I think it would just make them able to put Nettle Cyst with Stoneforge Mystic this turn. I think this was okay. They played the Lavinia, so this Supreme Verdict was pretty good for me. I just wanted to let this saga die now to let them make that construct token and get that artifact from Saga. They were just on 2 cards at this moment, so I was just able to bounce the last construct. So it seems like they're really trying to. It looks like they had Paladin in hand because they put all their equipment in. I had multiple removals here, so they weren't able to do much. They just drew into fourth hammer, equipped all of that on the paladin, and I was just able to prismatic ending the paladin, attack for 3, save the fury, save the solitude, save the omnat for next turn, also with the fairy in the play, kind of can't lose in this situation. So my opponent concedes after the fury. Okay, that was game 2. So now game 3 against my hammer time opponent. Okay, decent hand, too, especially with the second binding. So through bindings, the fairies so able to survive the early game. I just go for triumph here, so I'm able to cast my Leyland bindings more easily later. My opponent finds the Kadra. I go for the fairy this time. Binds. This time I decided to go for the uh, there's a saga bounce. They don't decide not to play the saga on this turn, but just put a Kadra in. Maybe hold. I don't know why they didn't play the saga. But I had the Leyland Binding. Next turn I should have played the land before the Leyland Binding. But it's okay, I had the second one in hand. So in this situation, pretty comfortable situation for me, holding the counter spell, holding binding, have the force of vigor, hoping for them to play another artifact spell so I can use the force better. I tried to go for the Omnat, my opponent has the mana leak, so no success. So going for Omnat was a bit risky because now I didn't have a green card to to ditch for force in hand. My opponent has the solution for even for the second Murktide. I'm still fine because I have the Leyline Binding in hand in case they try to do something more dangerous. Okay, so my opponent, I don't know, like they forgot to make another construct or something, but that was fine. I'm on comfortable 8 life with my opponent being on a 0 card, have the Force of Figure, have the counter spell. So there isn't much my opponent can do. Uh, I decided to use, I will probably have to use Force on the Hammer at some point anyway, so I kill the Brute, kill the Hammer, fetch for another land, cycle the Triumph. I still have a counter spell for next turn, just trying to find some way to end this game, and I did find the Fury, uh, k- killing the Stoneforge with 2 counter spells in hand, pretty much game over. Just wanted to get over with this. Had the Boseiju, had the counter spell, just needed 3 attacks from Fury, but my opponent really can't do anything here. Okay, so that's it. My opponent draws another card and concedes, and that was the last game against my Hammer Time opponent. Okay, so now a match 3. Match 3 had to mulligan again to very decent 6 cards. Playing first. Okay, so my opponent goes Grazer turn 1, which means on Savage Run, which means they are on Escape Shift. I played the Sacred Foundry on this turn because I had the iteration in hand. This way I can go for um, the iteration next turn, but I decided to go for Teferi instead. It wasn't the greatest play, obviously, but I kind of really wanted to draw another card. Okay, so my opponent was didn't have a fetch, which was a pretty good situation for me here, and at this point, it's kind of very good position for me. So I get my Omnat back. I'm able to play the iteration, Solitude, whatever I want, or Solitude hold, counterspell. So pretty good. I go to attack for Ren. My opponent jumps with Grazer. They try to find something, but they don't find much. So they just play another Grazer, put 2 lands in play, maybe trying to win with Escape Shift next turn. I have the Ren here to gain some more life, which is obviously good against Escape Shift. I go for the Ren kill. Ren has been kind of useless for them this game. They can even kill me with Escape Shift. At this point, I have too much life. They just went for Bring to Light, but I had a counter spell. Okay, so gaining a lot of life each turn here with another counter spell in hand means it's pretty much game over for my opponent. Also, Ren ticking on the field. When it gets to 7, it's a game over. it's already game over. But yeah, you know, like um, they really don't have a chance if Ren gets to 7. Okay, so really close to winning here, gaining more lives. So basically, escape shift in this situation is not winning them the game anymore, not even close. They try to survive one more turn, but they can't, so it's a game 1. Game 2. Game 2 I lost, but I think it was the mana screw. Okay, I decided to keep the Vance Island. I drew into another land, but no fetches, so ran kind of useless for now. They start first with Ren. It's a pretty good start here, so I immediately kill their Ren, play my Ren. Unfortunately, no fetch for me, so not able to gain any value here. But being able to go for iteration next turn means I can maybe get it. Unfortunately, I don't find it. With iteration, just a stomping ground, so no white source still. Just another run in hand, and here it is. So finally found the land, so I was able to play my Leyline Binding and get that fetch back with Ren, while also holding the Boseiju. My opponent decides to go for the Teferi again. They don't have Ren in this situation, so I decide to put this Valakuts on the field. I'm wasn't sure how much of the Valakuts are they playing. Some of these lists kind of like played. Some of these lists played too. I decided to go for the Ephemerate here immediately because it was kind of a useless card with the fairy on the field, and I wouldn't get the rebound spell unless I draw the solution for the fairy. But in the long run, this uh, Ephemerate wouldn't do anything with the fairy on the field. I decided to go for it immediately, and it was a very good decision because I immediately drew the Leyland Binding with it, and I was able to get rid of the second Teferi, so they didn't get any value from any of their Teferis. They just plus them 2 times. And now I have my rebound from the Ephemerate on the Omnat next turn. Okay, so this is a dangerous deck to play against with this deck because they always have that one-off Scapeshift kill lurking, and Omnat is one way to gain a lot of life, get out of that uh, get out of that situation, but it's still hard because yeah, it's still hard. So I was holding the counter spell, Boseiju. They always have that can go that bring to light escape shift. Definitely had to counter this, saving the Boseiju. They they resolved the iteration. So Veil of Summer wasn't doing much at the moment. I decided to block here because I had another omelet in hand. So it was a good trade for me, and also had another Vran. So I had the Vran ulti here. I was kind of afraid of them going trying to go for the kill after the Veil, so I should have probably left the first Veil resolve and just see what happens. I don't think it was very good countering both of these. It wasn't that bad either, but I think they got rid of the Wren now, so I didn't have any more lands. Unfortunately, they got another omelette. They were able to get the Valakut from the graveyard. So, and with the Dryad and another omelette, they had the third omelette trigger, which means they were able to get rid of both of my Planeswalkers, which was pretty bad for me. And even with even with Vren ulti, I wasn't able to win this. I destroyed one Valakut in response. They had plenty of others, of course, so they were even if they don't kill me, they just get incredible value here. Four triggers, they can kill all of my creatures if they don't have the kill, but of course they do. So they just go for another land, and it's the lethal damage. So that's it. Okay, it was time for game three. Game three is much easier on the play. Also, my opponent was very low on time, and I had a significantly much better time left. So I was able to play the Ren on the play, get that land back. It's a really a strong play in these situations. So being able to resolve the Ren first, and with they definitely had a whale here, but they play land before their iteration, so they weren't able to use their iteration fully. They didn't get the card they exiled. They can play. They can just get that one card. So Jad stayed in the exile. Okay, so I was able to get my Triumph to get that Leyland binding working, and I went for Counterspell again. They had the second whale, which is pretty good for them. I'm not resolving was pretty decent. I was able to hold the ephemerate, kill their Brennan 6. Now they had to deal with my Brennan 6 because it's on 7, and I have a Counterspell and Doin's Veto in the sideboard. Fortunately for them, they have the binding and iteration, but just 1 minute left on the clock. Um, I could have gone for the ephemerate here, of course. I shouldn't have shocked myself there. It could be the difference between lethal and non-lethal if my opponent had more time. Definitely, it was a bad decision to shock myself there. Okay, so my opponent goes for... Okay, so I wasn't able to prevent this with their Teferi on the field. They had Dryad and the Scape Shift on the same turn, and the Fairy survived on 1 life, unfortunately. So I didn't have a solution for them playing all of that in the same turn, but they didn't have enough time to resolve all of these abilities, so that I got a win. It was a very close match though. And they had a lot of damage here, but victory is a victory. Okay, so had a bit of luck there though. Okay, so that skip shift matchup is traditionally one of the hardest matchups for this normal version of Omnat control, but and the reason why the deck gained some popularity. So the next matchup was, I think, the latest list from the Nasif. I think it was the Soul Herder deck with with the, some wall with arcades that can make their walls attack. Okay, so my opponent tries to resolve the Teferi. I have the counter spell. Okay, I go for expressive iteration, get my rank here, bluff the counter spell. So there's plenty of value here. So on my turn, I go for the Ren and 6. I cycle my Triumph and get that back with Ren. It was a pretty good engine for me to have in this matchup that tends to get really grindy. Okay, so I had to win the long game here, so I had to play all of the value plays I can. I tried to say my run didn't find a solution, but I did find the Omnat, which is also very good. Okay, now with Omnat, I can put some threats on the field, which they have to deal with. Okay, so they play a Solitude in response to my Omnat. They try to Solitude their Solitude, but I Solitude their Solitude in response. And they go to Solitude my Omnat again with the next with their second Solitude. So I didn't. They killed my Omnat before resolving, but they had to use almost all of their cards in the meantime, and I I think I won the payoff war here. So they played the Soul Herder. If I didn't have the solution here, I would be in problem, but I did. Had the Leyland Binding, had the Solitude. I was able to kill the war, put the Solitude in as a threat, which they have to deal with, and yeah, I cleared the blocker, so I countered the wall, and just drew into another counter spell, which was good for me in this situation, and had a significantly larger amount of lands on the field than my opponent. And some good draws in the critical situations meant I'm in now in a much better position. These arcadas would be a problem if I didn't if I didn't kill those walls before. He put Ren on one, which was good for me, so I had another. I could bring Triumph another time. I almost got all my lands out from the deck using this Ragran Triumph a lot of times through this match. My opponent concedes at this moment, so it was time for match two, game two. Okay, just a two lands from this, but with two iterations, it's really high chance for me to hit the third, fourth land I need. Uh, I think this matchup is pretty interesting. They got the card from the Soul Herder, but I immediately was able to kill the Soul Herder next turn. I think this matchup is pretty interesting. As you will see, this game it's just a value war. Didn't find land this turn, but I did find Vren in 6, which was pretty important. Both decks just generate incredible amount of value here. Okay, they go for the Ice Fang. Decide to let all of that resolve. At this point, they go for the Rebound Ephemerate, but I put Dress Down on the field to prevent for them to playing anything broken. This turn like getting value out of Soul Herder, Eternal Witness, and this Rebound Ephemerate. So in my turn, I just play the Verdict, decide it's time to play the Verdict, clear the board, and start the game over. They continue to draw more cards with Arcadas, Wall of Blossoms drawing two. I decided it's best to get rid of these Arcadas as quick as possible. Get another land on the field, and so you can notice that throughout all of this game, both of the players are non-stop on 7 cards in hand. At some point, you fall to 5, 6 cards, but you gain that cards in hand so quickly. So I'm constantly both players are on 7 cards doing crazy stuff, drawing insane amount of cards. So through this whole time, it's just a battle who will resolve more permanents that are game defining for this matchup. Uh, had the counter spell here. The fair is pretty good in this matchup, stopping the ephemerates for my opponent. My opponent goes for the second. The fairy didn't have solution there, but I went for the verdict in response. Kill all the volts so they can go bounce a volt to hand, draw a card, then replay the volt, draw another card. On my turn, I just play the iteration, find Ren. I don't know why my opponent played a Whale before anything, because they already had the Fairy on the field. I couldn't counter anything, so they just wasted that Whale of Summer. It was a pure waste. I find all I need in this situation, a counterspell, a Leyline Binding for that Fairy. So I was able to play my Omnat here with the counterspell up. And again, a pretty good situation. Again, the winning plan for me. Another iteration in hand, another solitaire in hand with counterspell, and my opponent is declining on the resources because they didn't use all of them as good as they could. Okay, so let's the ephemerate resolve. I hold counterspell for more important cards like this one. Okay, they get rid of. I let them draw another card. I just wanted to Finding Fury here was perfect, so I was able to get another Solitude, get a Bolt, so I'm able to put them on 3 life here, having two lethal creatures on the board. My opponent gets the Solitude. But they're definitely getting lower on the resources here, so on my turn I'm able to play both of my Solitudes, but I really would just want them to jump here. So I just attack first. If they have the Ephemerate, then I can counter Ephemerate with one of my Solitudes. I just play one of the Solitudes immediately before they drew into more cards, holding another one in hand. So again, I am presenting lethal on the board. For the next turn, my opponent has to do something. Okay, and end of turn, I go for another Solitude. They had a Subtlety, which was good for them, but not good enough. I fetch before, so I can leave Solitude on my. This I think this was the last land from my deck. So I just kill the Arcades, attack with bow, they trade with one of Solitudes, jump with the wall, again presenting a lethal on the board for next turn. My opponent doesn't have any more solutions for it, and that's it. So a pretty exciting game where my opponent had 15 cards left in their library and I had 18. So we pretty much used all of our resources in the entire deck, but I just used them slightly better. And that was it. Okay, so that was match 4, and we will now see the last game. For the trophy match, it was the Junt Saga matchup. Also pretty good games. Uh, Pretty good hand for me here. My opponent had a lot of hand disruption here, so they got rid of the iteration. And also they decided to go for the bolt. Not sure why. I think Solitude was a better choice here. Okay, they kept the Goyf in. They played the Goyf, so I just was able to play my iteration, get another land and another iteration in hand. My opponent had very good draws here with the discard spells, so they got rid of another. Uh, they got rid of another iteration, and I was able. I had pretty good draws, to be honest. So had Omnat here on top of the deck to play both Omnat and Solitude in this situation, and I had Ephemerate for the next turn. Of course, my opponent goes for the equip here, which enables them the attack, but that means they won't kill the Solitude in this situation, so they didn't have any mana open, so they did a very bad block here. I was able to kill the Solitude. And that way I got rid of both of their constructs. Not the greatest draws at the moment, but I was able to kill the Vren with my ability, with the Vren ability, and had a solution for the construct for the next turn. So I just put my fetch here, ping the bolt so I can attack for 6, and I have lethal with Omnat ability next turn. and Ice Fang attack. So I just have to bolt the construct token so they can attack with it. I had to do this before there's a saga resolves because construct would be too big for me to bolt it. This way they can gain life this turn, and I have the lethal with Omnat and Ice Fang. So my opponent concedes. That's it. Okay. Okay, my opponent played the 0-1 Goif. So I was able to just bolt it. So it was pretty good for me. They also were stuck on two lands. I was able to resolve the heat here. Um, I decided to just get rid of this Nihil Spellbomb by uh, plussing the Wren. I could have gone for the ending, let them draw a card, and then return a fetch to my hand, but I think my hand was just good enough. I just needed another land, and I got it immediately next turn. But maybe still, it wasn't the greatest play. I decided to just play Fury on my turn. They probably had the Bolt and another Ragavan, but I was fine with this. They were stuck on lands, having problems here, no Saga. And they got rid of another Fury, put Holy Heat my Renan 6, but Renan 6 still on 1. So they go for Turak, but I have the dress down, so Turak enters as a 2-1, does nothing. I'm able to just ping it with Ren, no need to use the verdict. And that's it, my opponent concedes. I have too much stuff going on, and they were stuck on lands and were unable to use their resources very well, so that was it. Okay, that was the entire league. The trophy game, I had a bit of luck in the match 3 against my escape shift opponent, where opponent ran out of time in the moment where they had their kill assembled. But yeah, that also happens, not that rarely. That also happens a lot, and I think a lot of the games in these leagues were pretty interesting, pretty fun, grindy, very fun to watch, and it was fun to play. I think this deck is incredibly, incredibly strong. The list like this feels perfect to me. I really liked those vetoes on the sideboard. Uh, what Celestial Purges have been decent, and I just feel like like this. Domin's vetoes on the sideboard have been. I wanted to say they have been very good. Verdicts have also been very good. Both sages are great. Veil of Summers, I didn't use them through this league, but I hold them for the scan matchup. If I'm on the play, Veil can really help. It can also be decent on the draw, I guess. Um it really helps to have that solitude against turn 1 grief if they try to do that. So that way, at least if they scam you, they won't be able um, to apply early pressure, so you'll be able to draw out the spells you need to turn game around. Force of Vigors are always great for that hammer time, scales, affinity matchups. Dress Down, I think it's also a very versatile card. I really like that one. Celestial Purge is kind of a flex as well as the Veil of Summer. These four cards, I think these are the flex spots. Um, Veils could be mystical disputes in different meta game. You can notice that there is no graveyard hate in this version. You could also play some endurances, of course. Uh, and maybe even some other graveyard hit like a Relic of Progenitus, something like that, whatever you like. I think they weren't really necessary for this version of a deck, where you have some Doin's Vetoes on the sideboard, counter spells in the main, and there is just no living ends in the leagues. Dredge is also very rare to encounter, so basically all the graveyard decks you have to face are like uh, Breach decks, Murktide decks. Also, Endurance is decent against Mill, so if Mill gets more popular with the new Jays, Endurance, of course, is a fine choice. I have said these four cards, I think of them as kind of flex spots. Maybe these three could be Endurances if they are required, but I felt very fine in these two leagues I played without them. And that's it. Okay, so you can help the if you like the videos, you can help the channel by clicking subscribe, clicking the like button. That's it for this time. I think this is just incredibly strong deck in the modern at the moment, especially these versions with the counter spells and always vetoes. It can just can answer anything. Any deck is good against everything that's played at the moment, and I just can't believe people aren't playing this deck. I'm partially happy people are not playing this deck because it's incredibly hard to play against it. And yeah, okay, so that's it. That's it for this time. See you.